Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we will be clearing some Chicago Bears air because we have some angry listeners. And we'll talk about the Blackhawks, and they are still streaking. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Tickets are on sale now. The season is coming to a close rather quickly, so head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Hey Alex, how have you been, my friend?
I've been doing all right. How have you been?
Well, it was an interesting week to say the least. Mm-hmm. So I think we should just jump right in with Chicago Bears.
Sure.
So we got a lot of angry messages on some Twitter ones, some Facebook ones, some emails, and some on YouTube as well. Yeah, there was a few. Some were way more angry than others. Some were just confused, but there was some angry ones that they were mad that we were not more mad. Pretty much.
About Glennon, about everything, about the off season in general.
All of it. All of it. Everybody just wanted us to pile on. I guess the way I'll start it is, I was born in 1977. That means during the Super Bowl run, I was like 8 years old. At 8 years old, the Super Bowl shuffle happened. And just as a kid, just hearing that, and your team is the best in the world, and there's so much bravado, and you've got so many characters, and just, you know, the Super Bowl shuffle came out at like week 4 of that season. It didn't come out after the Super Bowl win. It came out like during week 4. So this was just like an anthem to hype everybody up. And as an 8-year-old, you get caught right up into that. So for me, that's how I grew up. That was my Bear fandom, when you just get indoctrinated as a fan. That time period was the Super Bowl shuffle for me. So now, as an almost 40-year-old man, it's I even when things aren't as the way I would like them to be, and I can admit this team is not very good, but when I see the direction they're going and I see the things they're doing, I try to look at things with a glass half full attitude and outlook, rather than, oh my God, this team sucks and I hate them so much and I want to burn my Bears jerseys. I get to those points during the season, but I always come back to glass half full unless they give me a reason not to. Ryan Pace, you know, you could give me your thoughts, Alex.
Yeah, well, you know, right now it's pretty obvious that the Bears are not very good. We all know that. I'm frustrated. You're frustrated. We're all frustrated. We all want things to be better. We all want them to be better as soon as possible. But sometimes you have to take a step back and think. What we want isn't necessarily possible. If I had magic beans and I could just snap my fingers and make the Bears Super Bowl winners, believe me, I'd do that in a heartbeat. But that's not the case. What Ryan Pace seems to be doing is trying to rebuild a team that is going to have a lot of young players, a lot of guys out of the draft, and what this tells me, the moves he's making this offseason, he is looking for fill-ins and veteran depth, and this is going to be done in a way to kind of bring up more young assets and build this team step by step. This doesn't mean he's going to go out just because we have a ton of money. It's hard to just go right out and rebuild a team in one offseason when the free agent class isn't going to solve all your problems. I mean, a lot of judgment is happening before the most important thing of the offseason happens, and that's the NFL draft. We've seen Ryan Pace's some of his picks, and some of them have looked pretty good when you look at Howard and some of those other guys. So you got to understand that this process takes time, and there's going to be some stopgap players. You know, it's hard to knock a guy who started with almost nothing to work with, who was set back years.
I'm going to interrupt you. He started with worse than nothing. He started with an aging team full of high-cost veterans.
Yeah, and especially since those terrible Emery and Trestman drafts they set them back so long. I mean, he's inheriting a huge mess. Huge mess.
Yeah, it's a lot like when Jed and Theo took the reins for the Cubs. This Bears team was in a bad shape. Mm-hmm. The defense was, at every single way you could evaluate them, statistically, eyeball test, just the results on the field, the worst defenses ever assembled by the Chicago Bears.
It was abysmal.
It was abysmal. I mean, the first year of Trestman, the offense was okay. But then that second year, they regressed a lot. And it was just such an epically bad team. Ryan Pace had a lot cut out for him. And I don't always agree with what he's doing, but here's the reality of things, is he had to dismantle everything that they had. Tear it down to the studs. Then he's got to rebuild it. And, you know, people are like, why didn't we go out and sign this player? Why didn't we sign this player? Few factors. One is he's told you who he wants to sign. He doesn't want to pay somebody big money for past performance. He wants to pay them for expected performance, what he expects them to do in the future. So that means, and he wants somebody that's going to be in their prime through the whole contract or is heading into their prime right now. Also, it takes two to tango. Is like Stephon Gilmore. If you're the Bears and you offer him a lot of money, but New England Patriots come along and offer him similar money, what reason would he have to go to the Bears over the Patriots? Because
10
with
out
the
of 10
Patriots,
you go to the Patriots. 10 out of 10 times.
I'm a Bears fan, and if I was presented with that, it would be a really hard choice. Because, you know, my heart would be with Chicago, but I'm like, why am I going to want to go out there and lose every game when I can go out there and win every game and probably win a Super Bowl?
And play for one of the greatest coaches, whether you like him or not, in one of the greatest systems that we've ever seen, with the greatest quarterback that has ever existed. I mean, who would turn down that opportunity?
Absolutely. That's a reality as well, is you have to woo this player. I know they say, well, there's only 32 teams in the league, so there's only 32 companies hiring. But when you are a really wanted player, all 32 teams want you. And you have a choice. So you have to, it's not just, you go out and sign him. Because if that's the way it was, you know, every team would have a Tom Brady. The other thing is the most important position in the NFL is extraordinarily unsolved with the Bears. And I know that we didn't get angry enough about the Mike Glennon situation, but there was really, to this point, I'm not sure what everyone else wanted. I've heard, well, they should have kept Jay Cutler, or they should have kept Brian Hoyer. And they could have done either of those options probably, but that Brian Hoyer, we know what he is. He's not a winner. He's not going to put touchdowns on the field, and he's getting older as well. And Jay Cutler is suddenly, all the Jay haters are suddenly Jay lovers. Jay Cutler has not played a full season in a long time. He's injury prone at this point. And I know, and I'm not saying he's a wimp. I'm not saying any of those things. at some point his body is breaking down, and he is in his mid-30s, which is right at the end of his career for most quarterbacks. He's at the point where he's got a lot of money, he's got a gorgeous wife, he's got young children. What motivation does he have to go out there and win anymore, or beat his body up?
Especially on a team that's not projected to be good for another year or so.
And a team that clearly doesn't want you.
Yeah.
And, if you keep Jay Cutler, that is the biggest... that is not setting yourself up for the future at all. If you keep Jay Cutler, I just, in no way do I see him as being a mentor to a young quarterback. I just see that as if any of you have read the Aaron Rodgers story that he told, or the story about how when he joined the Packers, how the backup quarterback and Brett Favre both just made his life miserable. I see that as probably something Jay does. I'm sure, why this guy's coming in taking my job is everybody likes him and they hate me. The coaches don't like me, but they're stuck with me. That's the situation I see it. And plus, Jay Cutler is free to sign with any team he wants, and nobody wants him.
Yep. That's got to tell you something. And look, I'm not one of the uber Cutler haters. I've, said that he's not perfect, but I think he's been a scapegoat way too many times when he shouldn't been. He's still put up more productive numbers than other quarterbacks in Bears history, which I know isn't saying a whole lot because the history of the Bears quarterback is not exactly great. The only really good one other than him was like Sid Luckman and, maybe Jim Harbaugh. He had his moments, but still. But it comes to the point where you got to move on. And the people who wanted him out of town faster than anything, you got your wish. I just don't understand what you thought we were going to do. You can't just go out and sign an elite quarterback. They're not available, and they're such a rare commodity. I just don't get what an alternative would be. Now, I will say, when I heard about the Glennon situation, what I was worried about was that they were going to give him a long-term deal and that this was going to be the guy for the future. I'd be a little more upset or disappointed or confused if that were the case, but that's not the case. Don't just say, 3-year deal, he's going to be here for 3 years. No, you got to look at the way the contract is worked out. And the way the contract is worked out, it's essentially a 1-year deal. So that tells you that there's obviously a plan for a young quarterback out of the draft in the future. You just need a bridge somewhere. Now, I know Mike Lennon, it's not overly exciting. I get that. But give the guy a chance to play here. Give him a chance to play in a new system, under new coaching, with a new philosophy. I'm not expecting him to be great. I don't really know what I expect from him. But he hasn't played 1 second for the Bears yet. So I don't know if it's appropriate for us to endlessly ream the Bears for signing a guy who hasn't played with them yet. I know his track record isn't great. Don't you go ahead, remind me of that gif that everyone shares about him kind of just lobbing the ball. But again, let's see how he does in the system. And you know what? If he stinks, you get rid of him. You move on. And again, we haven't drafted yet. What if we draft a young quarterback and he's just a first certain stopgap? Wait to see what happens in the draft, and there's so much more to be addressed. So I don't think it's appropriate to ream the Bears at this point.
Yeah, there's just here. Honestly, your 3 best options were AJ Cutler, keeping him, and there's 31 other general managers who are at this point saying we don't want him. So there's now 32 GMs. Every single 100% of GMs are not signing him. 2 is Brian Hoyer, who again is older, and his best option was going with the 49ers. I don't hate Brian Hoyer, It's just he has a very low ceiling. He's got this, his window of what he can do is, his floor is I would say his floor is higher than Mike Glennon, because you know exactly what you're going to get, but his ceiling is really low. You're going to get a guy who's going to put up some decent yards, but he can't put it into the red zone. He can't score. He's not going to turn the ball over. And
that's the eye-popping thing. He doesn't turn the ball. He didn't turn the ball over last year. Can't say the same thing about the year before with the Texans, but last year that people kind of just judge quarterbacks by interceptions, and can't do that.
Yeah, I don't expect great things from Mike Glennon, but we absolutely needed a change from Jay Cutler, and Mike Glennon is a change.
Yes.
Is it a good change? I don't know. I'm not telling anybody that it's a good change, but I'm certainly not saying it's a bad change. I'm saying I will judge once the season starts. If he goes out there and looks like, just awful throwing four, he looks like Matt Barkley in the last couple games of the season, I'm going to be right alongside everybody booing. But I want to give him a chance, because a lot of people booed the draft pick, and I remember this. I could probably pull people's names that booed the draft pick of Jordan Howard because we just drafted a quarterback the year, or a running back the year before, and we drafted a running back the year before that. Why are we drafting another running back? We have our starting running back, and
he was our best player.
Yeah, so it's we have to see the guy play, and basically, this is exactly what the Bears are doing. They have veterans at every single position right now. That means that they are absolutely free to draft the best player available. And I think that, I think they overpaid some people, and I don't agree with everything they did in this offseason, but Ryan Pace put in a veteran at every single position, and most of them are for minimal money and for this year only. And so if somebody's a breakout star, if we have a breakout quarterback star, then you know what, Mike Glennon, you're off the books next year. If we draft a stud wide receiver, we can move on from Kendall Wright or Marcus Wheaton. If we have a stud stud tight end, is Deion Sims can be gone. Like that's where we're at.
And this cap, it's only affected this year, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, is on the books for next year. The Bears have so much money, it's ridiculous, and they still have like $26 million left this year. So I know people are complaining that they gave Mike Glennon too much money and they were bidding against themselves. I would have liked them to give Mike Glennon less money, but if they give Mike Glennon $10 million instead of $15, does it matter? What's the difference between the Bears?
Doesn't.
How many other players are left in free agency right now? So if the Bears have $31 million versus $26 million left over, is that a big difference? I mean, it's not your money to spend. It's not like there's a stud guy out there and the Bears are, within that $5 million window that they can't sign him. That's not the case. The Bears can sign whoever they want. They have plenty of money to do so. There's just not too many people left to sign.
Right, and I say this over and over. You get your best assets in the draft, especially when you're rebuilding. People need to realize this team is going through an overhaul. They're trying to get young. They're slowly doing it, but they need a lot more on this team as a whole and a lot more young assets. I love a lot of these small signings, frankly. Like that one cornerback that we signed recently, who was from Arizona, I think.
Cooper?
Yeah, I'm like, this is a great signing. You get a veteran guy who had some decent numbers, and if you draft more young assets, same thing I could say for Demps as well when they signed him. You draft some of these young guys, and here's your veteran presence to kind of help them get into the league. I think it's the perfect scenario to rebuild. This is a multi-year project, and you know what? I know baseball is different than football, but we were patient with the Cubs, and look what happened. If the similar kind of philosophy is taken here, then I'm all for it. Why rush a rebuild by throwing money at people that are A, unnecessary, and B, when you still have, even if you signed more people, when you still have holes all over the place. I mean, this team is full of holes. It's not just the quarterback. It's not just the secondary. The team has holes in every position but running back.
Yeah,
it takes a while to rebuild all that.
Yeah, it's to build. I mean, if everybody were to stay 100% healthy and nobody missed any games from the starters, all right, you probably have a competitive team on the books. But that just doesn't happen in the NFL. Is you have injuries. It's about how much depth you have. And that's where the Bears, when Ryan Pace came in, they were lacking in top-end talent, and they were lacking in depth.
Oh, they had zero negative depth, if you ask me.
Yeah, and so now is you're trying to balance of building depth, but getting stud players, because you need a certain number of studs, and then a lot of depth. That's where you're at, and you need a winning program, and all of that takes time. I'm a big believer that you can do addition by subtraction. I was for the trading of Brandon Marshall. I was for some of these trades that they just moved. The Black Unicorn. Had to move him just because he was a headache. Alshon Jeffrey, they didn't value him as high based on a lot of factors. And basically what they're trying to do is build a culture. And that's how you build a winning program. You have a culture. That's what the Patriots have. There's a winning culture there. And that was kind of what the Cubs had to do too, you could put all the Jim Hendry way of signing all the highest free agents and whatnot, and you had a losing culture and you lost. And Jed and Theo came in and they brought superstars with them, but at first they were people you never heard of. Everybody screamed and yelled that we didn't sign Albert Pujols, but guess what?
Or Prince Fielder.
Yeah, but guess what? It's 2017. How glad are you still don't have those contracts on the books?
Look at the Angels. Look at them. Do you want to be them?
Yeah. So I mean, look at one of the teams that has won the off-season Super Bowl free agency. The Redskins have done it so many times, but what have they done in the past 25 years? Nothing. It doesn't matter what and the Packers and the Patriots don't win the off-season free agency very often, if ever. And guess what? Those teams are always competitive. You just have to have a winning culture and have guys that fit your system, have a winning system, and put it in place. And I don't know if the Bears are going to do that. I appreciate the effort that's what they're attempting to do. I appreciate that's the goal, because I would love to see the Bears. I think we all would. We would love to see the Bears as perennial winners, and the team that you lock them in as the division winner from before the draft happens, before anything. You're like, well, how? And you when you talk about the Vikings and the Lions and the Packers, you talk about what are they going to do to beat the Bears this year? That's what I want to talk about, the Bears. But we're not there, and I don't know if we'll get there. But I'm at least going to keep my fingers crossed and stand with my team. And if if they have another awful season like this, then I start to really question Ryan Pace. But if this draft works out well and you see the progression forward, then you need to back off of your criticism and say, hey, listen, it looks like the plan is coming together, as Mr. T would say. I love it when a plan come together.
Yeah, because look, I am the kind of person who wanted the Bears to filter everything out from the old schemes. Everything. Tear the whole thing down and start completely over. And again, this philosophy comes a lot from what the Cubs did, but I truly think it's for the best. Everything from the old schemes and the old ways, you get rid of it all. All gone. Out with the old, in with the new. Rebuild the team from top to bottom. Because look, it sucks to go through years of rebuilding. I know. But it could be so worth it in the end. Because you know what? If you try to mash something together and it doesn't work, it is 10 times more frustrating, and we should all know that. I mean, heck, do you remember in 2014, one of the worst Bears messes that we've ever watched? There were people going into that season that were talking about the Bears potentially making a Super Bowl run. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And look what happened.
It was abysmal.
Yeah. Rebuild the culture, as you say. Everything, the assets, the philosophy, everything. Just make it all different and new and up to date. Because that's what we need. And if it's going to take a few years, it's going to take a few years. I'd rather they take their time and do this right than rush and completely fall on their backs, not being able to get back up. Now, keep this in mind. Now that Jay Cutler's gone, there is not a single player left on the roster from the 2010 team that made it to the NFC Championship. So a lot of things are being turned over roster-wise, that's for sure.
Yeah, and like I said, I like the fact that they are giving these people prove-it deals. You know what? Mike Glennon, you're on... Sure, you were appointed the starter on day one, and that pissed a lot of people off. But I don't know who else. I mean, Connor Shaw.
Really?
Connor Shaw is your competition, and if and when you draft somebody. But here's the thing: appoint him the starter. Who cares? If he doesn't perform, then he's gone. You're not stuck with him and going, crap. What are we gonna do? Like with the Jay Cutler thing, is you weigh. All right, if we cut him, how bad is it going to hurt us financially? You're done. Mike Glennon has to prove it. Mike Glennon has to prove he's a winner to keep this contract. And there's teams out there that have, middle of the road quarterbacks, and they're sort of stuck. Look at Baltimore with Joe Flacco. Baltimore is in a rebuilding mode, and I know Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl with them. But Joe Flacco isn't the type of quarterback that's going to just put the whole team on his back and win a Super Bowl. He needs a team around him. So
you had that defense in that Super Bowl year for Baltimore really step up.
So if you are the Ravens, what do? You're paying that guy a lot of money. B, he's not a Hall of Fame quarterback that's going to carry the team. You have to build around him, and you're sort of stuck. The Bears are in a position where, listen, we know the quarterback situation is bad. We put what in this room we think is the best option we had in here, and he's on basically a 1-year deal. So we judge it from there and go from there. Prince Amukamara, sure, we gave him essentially $11 million or whatever. But you know what? If he sucks, gone. He's a 1-year deal. Off the books. We had brought in a backup nose tackle because if Eddie Goldman gets hurt again, we're not putting in a guy a round peg into a square hole trying to play nose tackle. We brought in John Jenkins. They're actively trying to sign Ricky Jean-Francois to play the other defensive tackle spot. So you actually have a rotation of people that can play that position. You're bringing in 4 outside linebackers to play. You added some veterans in the safety position. You brought in some veterans in the cornerback position, so you're not relying on old Tracy Porter and a bunch of kids. On the offensive side is you brought in another tackle for competition. Sure, probably going to be the swing tackle, but at least it puts Massey and Leno on notice that, hey, if you don't play well, this guy played on a Super Bowl team last year, and he's going to take your spot. Tight end, you've got tight end depth now. You've got a new quarterback. You've got brought in new wide receivers. There is people at every position, whether or not they're going to pan out. They've at least stocked players at every position, so we could start the season today and be able to compete. Now, sorry, go ahead.
My question is just, what do people want them to do? If you don't like what they're doing, what do you want them to do? What is your solution? What do you think is better than what they're doing? Are you just... Look, if you're just plain expressing your frustration because things haven't been going right, I get it. We're all frustrated. But step back and think. What is an alternative solution that makes sense? And right now, I can't think of any. Who's better in free agency?
Yeah, honestly, that's where I'm at. Is, if you don't like what the two of us are saying about the Bears, please give specifics. I know there'll be people saying we should have kept Jay Cutler, and then when he gets hurt, not if, when he gets hurt this year, do you go with Connor Shaw? What happens is you can't count on the guy to play 16 games at this point in his career. And when he is playing, he hasn't played at a very good level, without Adam Gase as his coordinator. And Adam Gase is gone. So I just, I would like specifics. Like, say, hey, listen, I think that they would have been better off bringing in this guy or keeping this guy. Just don't be like, I can't believe you guys suck, you're stupid, blah, blah, blah. I know everybody's frustrated. You know how many times I threw the remote control across the TV during Bears games because I was just disgusted by the play on the field? I'm frustrated too. I'm frustrated. I'm extraordinarily frustrated, and I'm embarrassed by a 3-13 team.
Sure, me too.
As a Bears fan, you're awfully, I'm on the north side of the city. I'm awfully close to Wisconsin. I'm tired of listening to Packer fans. Tired of it.
And, I feel like the Packer fan population around here just gets bigger and bigger by the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a cousin who grew up in like Tinley, Markham area his whole life. So on the, south of the city, and is a diehard Packers fan. And it's infuriating.
Like that. Yeah.
It's just so, yeah. So I understand the frustration. I really do, and I sympathize, and I understand where it's coming from. But I just put the frustration aside for a second and discuss things rationally and calmly. That's what I ask.
Yeah, right. I mean, if you want to have a legitimate discussion, then yeah, I'd like to hear some other alternatives. But if there is none, then what are we talking about here? What's the point? What do you want us to say? Everything is terrible and nothing ever great is going to happen again? I just don't understand that.
Yeah, so I mean, here's the reality is we have $26 or so million, depending on how some of the lower money contracts are set up. And here's the best free agent still available in the NFL. Adrian Peterson, and they don't need to sign an old running back. Jonathan Hankins, and there's some issues with him why he hasn't signed yet. T.J. McDonald is a safety. I mean, that's a possibility the Bears could bring in. I don't think he's great, but I don't think he's terrible.
You don't need Zach Brown, an inside linebacker, Jay Cutler, Michael Floyd, and there's a reason Michael Floyd hasn't signed yet. And the NFL has put wide receivers on notice that A, we're not giving these stupid contracts out unless you are absolutely a stud, and B is we're going to do 1-year deals. If they brought in Michael Floyd on a 1-year deal, I think he's a terrible character guy. I wouldn't complain because once he went over to the Patriots, you didn't hear a peep out of him. But you know, I have a feeling that they won't bring in a Michael Floyd because of character issues, and they want to build a winning culture with the Bears.
Right.
Jamal Charles, again, you know, he's an old running back. Don't need him. LeGarrette Blount, don't need him.
Yeah, don't spend money just to spend money. Don't sign guys just to sign guys. You got to do it with a plan in mind. You got to value who you want to value and what's best for the team. The Bears aren't just going to go out and say, we have a lot of money, so we're just going to spend it. You know, it's like when you go to the grocery store and you have $100. Are you going to buy $100 worth of food if all you need is milk, eggs, and cheese? No.
Yeah, and, you know, so let's see, who else? Mario Williams, Dwight Freeney, old edge rushers that, you know, those are going to be guys that you sign on a winning team to come in there to in passing situations. The Bears aren't at that point. Don't need them. Bradley McDougald. All right, well, he had a couple of mass starts for the Bucks over the past couple of years. I don't know if he's worth, you know, an upgrade over what you have. Ryan Clady, is he an upgrade over Leno and Massey? I don't know. At one point, absolutely, he was a stud, but though that was a long time ago. Colin Kaepernick still available. Would the Glennon and Cutler haters prefer to bring in Colin Kaepernick?
No.
Ryan
That
Fitzpatrick
I'd be
is
mad
available.
about.
Ryan Fitzpatrick is still available. Would you like to bring him in?
No. Could you imagine Ryan Fitzpatrick in Chicago? Could you imagine that? What an absolute crap fest that would be from both the media and just on the field.
Geno Smith, still jobless.
Isn't he expected to go with the Giants? I thought I heard that.
I've heard that they have interest, but he hasn't gone anywhere yet.
Okay.
D'Angelo Williams, still available. Don't need him. There's just a lot of crap. Chris Long, Jarius Byrd. Jarius Byrd was once a pretty good player, but guess what? He's injury prone. So there's not a lot left in free agency, and the Bears have plenty of money left. So it's who cares if they overspend on free agents, because that's when you're a bad team. Sometimes that's what you have to do to bring in a guy. If you've identified, I think this guy is going to help our team, and we're a terrible team, we gotta overpay him, and we still have plenty of money left, and we didn't hurt the team going forward in the future. I don't think contract-wise, the Bears are in a bad spot. It's whether or not they signed the right guys. And sometimes these free agent signings turn out great. Jarrell Freeman, that was a great signing. I mean, I know he got busted for, banned substance, but when he played, he was great.
Yeah, I loved that signing.
Akeem Hicks, great signing. We'll see if the other inside linebacker can stay healthy. So,
yeah.
Tracy Porter was one of those one-year deals that people were like, oh, God, whoa, he's not going to make the team. And he's played pretty decently for the Bears for the past few years.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's been the best cornerback we've had over the past...
I mean, I know it's not saying much, but he's come up with some big plays. Am I a huge fan of his attitude? No, not really. And he has had some rough moments, but he's had some good moments as well, so...
You would just rather have him than Darrelle Revis at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody wants Darrelle Revis. But Yeah, I mean, it would be nice if they could bring in Jean Francois as another defensive tackle, because you'd put him across from Akeem Hicks, on the other side of Eddie Goldman, and I think that makes your defensive line better than Mitch Unrein there. But I read a USA Today article from recently, and it was talking about 4 players on the bubble for the Chicago Bears. And I'm like, all right, you got me here. I'm going to read this. So I'm like, all right, who is on the bubble already when they haven't finished free agency and they haven't had the draft? And the players, would you like to take a wild guess at who the 4 players were that are on the bubble already?
For the Bears?
Mm-hmm.
Jeez. Are you saying like I don't exactly know what you're saying. Are you saying like on the salary cap?
No, that they're on the bubble to make the squad this year, to get cut.
Oh, okay, I see. Crevon LeBlanc?
Nope. The first one is Zach Miller.
Oh, yeah, well.
I mean, really, if he's healthy, he's obviously your best tight end. It's just if the guy's healthy, and if he gets hurt, then it's not really a cut. It's an injury settlement.
How about if I could take another guess here, Pernell McPhee?
Nope. Close. Same position.
Willie Young.
Nope.
Danny
One more
Jamaica?
try. Lamar Houston.
Lamar Houston. Oh, yeah. I forget he's still a thing.
And I could see this one. This is one of the ones I could see, just because you would actually have cap savings with him, and he's been hurt the last 2 years. You haven't got a full season out of him, but I mean, who cares? If it's not like you need the cap money, and you don't have a ton of depth there. And so unless they draft, if they draft an outside linebacker, edge rusher on the team, then he becomes dispensable. But otherwise, I don't know. I sort of say you keep Lamar Houston because he's versatile. You could put him as a defensive tackle in that rotation, or you can put him as an outside linebacker, edge rusher. He's a little bit versatile that way.
Also, the guy who tore his ACL while celebrating sacking a backup quarterback when they were down by 25 or so points late in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he's the smartest guy or whatever, but it's a little bit of a thin position. So I don't know if he gets cut unless they can bring in somebody to obviously replace him.
Okay, so there's 2 more guys, right?
2 more.
And okay, let's see. Jones Corte?
Nope.
Antoine Roll?
Antrell Roll? He's gone already.
Is he? Okay. That's what I thought.
Eddie Royal.
Eddie Royal, yeah.
I forgot. I thought they cut him already, honestly.
Is Marquise Wilson the other one?
No. So
Oh.
Eddie Royal, he's going to be gone. He's injury prone, and I'm surprised they haven't cut him already. He's actually going to save the Bears cap room. You don't have to pay his salary. Just jettison him. He's not going to be healthy. He's not the player he was, and you brought him in to try to give a comfort zone to Jay Cutler, and Jay's not here anymore. So bye Eddie Royal.
The few games he did play last year, he did pretty well, but yeah, way too injury prone.
Oh yeah, he's just a disaster. And the last one is Bobby Massey.
Yeah.
The problem with him, I mean, I wouldn't call him a bubble player just because you don't have a lot of options at the tackle spot. The only thing I can see is if you were to say, listen, we feel really comfortable with Hronish Grasu as our center, and we move him to the center, kick Cody Whitehair to his natural position, which is guard, and so you have your 2 guard positions already full, and you move Kyle Long to left tackle, where his athleticism and mobility are, can be utilized.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a competition for right tackle with a draft pick, Leno, the new guy you signed, and Bobby Massey. Then he suddenly becomes expendable, and you could jettison that big contract he has and his inability to play. But if you're going to keep Cody Whitehair at center and Kyle Long at guard, you just don't have enough players to make him expendable. Is
Right.
Bobby Massey? You're sort of stuck with him because of just because of the
You don't have a lot of options.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember last year, and Bobby Massey, he used to be on the Cardinals, right, before the Bears?
Yeah.
When he came over, the first few games, I remember he would just get roasted. People just kind of waltz right around him. And then throughout the year, he was never great, but he got a little better. But yeah, I guess it really kind of depends on what happens in the draft, because there's a lot of things that are going to be affected by it, whether it's depth or competition for certain areas on the field. But yeah, the 4 players that you listed, it's too bad about Eddie Royal, because I was excited when we got him. I'm like, all right, good depth player to have, good veteran presence, did fairly well in San Diego. The injuries got him. And then Bobby Massey, the other 2, we just talked about him. It was not Willie Young.
Lamar Houston and Zach
Lamar
Miller.
Houston and Zach Miller. And Zach Miller, I mean, is he a Jimmy Graham? No, but we've seen what he can do when he's healthy, especially since we have really no tight end depth really whatsoever.
I mean, we re-signed Daniel Brown, and we brought in Deion Sims, but you need three tight ends on the roster, and
Yeah.
Daniel Brown and Deion Sims are more blocking tight ends, and Zach Miller is your receiving tight end. So it's not like he's making that much money. You're not in a tight cap space. If he's healthy, you're a better team with Zach Miller, and he's a good locker room guy. People like him.
Absolutely.
He's a veteran presence. He's a good ambassador for the team. I just don't see them cutting him unless somebody else is an absolute upgrade over him. Every as long as you have 3 tight ends that are better than him on the roster, then all right, but I just don't think the Bears are in that good of a position yet.
Well, I was just saying about Zach Miller, and Zach Miller was a really, really interesting pickup, because when we got him, we're like, oh yeah, I kind of heard from him. And then it turned to, it's Miller time, when he was making a lot of catches, whether in the end zone or down the field. And last year when he got hurt, I was really bummed, because I'm like, man, I really like this guy. Really good receiving tight end. And like you said, a really good ambassador in the locker room, which is something the Bears need more of, especially if you're going to have a young team. If you're going to keep drafting young assets, it's essential that you have those veteran leaders in the locker room. It's absolutely essential. So I hope he's back to full force when he comes back and still plays with the Bears and still does good things. And also, thank goodness we don't have Paulson anymore. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's hilarious. Is I heard him on Spiegel and Goff. I'm sorry, on what's the new show is
Bernstein and Goff. I think I heard the same interview.
Yeah, and they were asking him, or making fun of Logan Paulson. He's like, he's a good football player. He just maybe we'll have less holding penalties next year.
Exactly. Yeah, I heard that. I was listening to that same show, and that's what, honestly, when you brought up Zach Miller, the first thing I thought of was that interview we did with Bernstein and Goff.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think there's too many fans that hate Zach Miller. He's a good.
I don't think there's any.
He's a good liaison between the team and the fans. There's nobody's ever had a bad thing to say about him in the locker room. If he can stay healthy, I think he's still a big asset for this team, and especially having a new quarterback that you're going to want to work him in there, and he has experience with Mike Glennon. So I don't see him as a bubble player. I think he's pretty safe to have a spot on this roster.
I agree. I think they'd be nuts to get rid of him unless there was some return of a horrible injury that he had last year previously, but according to him, he seems like he's really coming along with rehabilitation, and he should be ready by season's beginning. So right now, there's nothing that tells me that a previous injury is gonna completely derail him this coming year.
Absolutely. So if anybody has comments, concern about the Bears, yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And in fact, if you're still upset, we would love to have you on the show to have a rational discussion. So let's move on over to Blackhawks. I know they're
much more fun to talk about.
Much more fun. I mean, not today. They're playing like crap against Colorado. But
What else is new?
This has been a good week for them. They had basically a 4-point win last weekend against the Minnesota Wild. Love 4-point wins. Those are great.
Yes.
Had a big win against Montreal, and that was a fantastic game. Montreal's a really good team. They had that big win against Montreal. They had a win against Ottawa, and an overtime win against Toronto. So this was a tough week for them, and they came out and looked good.
Yeah, and because those are some pretty good teams right there. Ottawa, they're better than a lot of people think sometimes. The Leafs are a young, upcoming team that has been a lot better this year under Coach Mike Babcock. And anytime you play a Mike Babcock team, it's going to be tough to beat no matter what. And then Montreal, as you mentioned, I mean, they're really good. And that Montreal game, they controlled most of that game. They kind of let off the gas pedal at the end there, and that's how they got those 2 goals. But for the most part, they played great hockey, and they scored goals on the best goaltender in hockey, in David Price. So you got to love that right there.
Yeah, and Montreal, it was such a fun game, and the Blackhawks really got up for that game. And it's nice to see the team get up because, for the most part, except coming out of long breaks or after they've had a bunch of games consecutively, and this Avalanche game sucks because they've played 4 games already this week, so they basically playing every other day, and this is a back-to-back. It's just exhaustion. But most of the time is, you just get a steady level of Blackhawks. And against that Montreal team, it seemed like they really got up for that because they came out with a big jump in their step.
Oh, yeah, and that's a lot unlike this game. They're down 3-1 to the Avalanche right now. They are all over the place. They are sluggish. They got some guys sitting, and that brings me to another point. The one thing that really does suck about this stretch was Artem Anisimov going down. That sucked.
Yeah, and when he went down, I think everybody was like, and bracing for the worst. What it's going to happen. And then everyone had a collective, all right, yes, when at the end of the game, Coach Q was like, well, it's day to day.
Yeah.
And then it comes out he's done for the rest of the regular season.
Which, okay, at least we'll have him back for the playoffs. The same thing happened to Kane in 2015, and look at what happened. I know Kane and Anisimov are 2 different players, but still, right now, the Hawks are, 5 points up on the Wild, I think?
Let me actually see the standings.
At least tonight, they can't lose any of that lead. It's probably either going to stay the same because they look awful tonight, or if they come back and win, game. But they can't lose any distance on the Wild tonight because they lost 5-4 to the Jets, and the Wild have been sputtering out lately the past, I'd say, 3 weeks while the Hawks continue their winning ways. So the Hawks were once down 9 points to the Wild. And now they're, I'm pretty sure, 5 points ahead or somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah,
Either way,
5
it's a
points
huge
ahead.
Yeah.
5 points ahead. And at one point, the Blackhawks were 9 games behind, and I think the Wild had 3 games in hand. So they had, so they could have, and if they won all 3 of those games, been up like 15 points. And now they've both played 71 games, and Blackhawks are up by 5 points, which is Awesome.
I really, really wish they could have taken advantage of this historically awful Avalanche team, but at least it'll maintain at 5 points. I was really like, all right, let's go up by 7. They could still come back as of right now where we're talking. They're down by 2 going to the third, but either way, quite a big swing because for a while, I think a lot of Hawks fans and a lot of people around the NHL were either fans, teams, whatnot. A lot of people in general were kind of saying, all right, while they're going to be the number 1 seed, Hawks will probably be number 2, and the third will be kind of a coin flip among certain number of teams. Now, you have the Hawks with a 5-point lead in first place, and it's even more funny when maybe right before midseason the Hawks were in a little bit of a slump, and there were people questioning if the Hawks were even going to make the playoffs. Yeah, that was extreme.
Yeah, I actually got into a Twitter argument with an analytics website for hockey that said that gave the Blackhawks something like a 70% chance of making the playoffs. I was like, come on, let's get real. And they started citing off all these reasons, and I just kind of want to be like, now what you got to say?
Yeah.
But it's funny is how sometimes things swing. A couple of years ago, the Blackhawks division was arguably the toughest in hockey. And right now, the Blackhawks, as great as they're doing, if they were in the Metropolitan Division, they would be in 4th place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Washington, Columbus, and Pittsburgh are all ahead of them.
That Eastern Conference, man, it has swung from being inferior to the Western Conference to being the better conference. The Washington Capitals team, that Pittsburgh team, this rejuvenated Blue Jackets team, the Rangers are still good. You can't count out the Bruins, really. And you have the Canadiens, even the Maple Leafs and the Senators now. I mean, the competition in that conference is quite unreal. It was kind of like when the Cubs were stuck in the NL Central in 2015. You have the 3rd best record in the majors, but you finished in 3rd place because the 2 better teams in the entire league were in your same division.
Yeah, and so if you were to look at the standings for the Eastern Conferences, Washington, Columbus, and Pittsburgh are the 3 best teams in hockey record-wise, all in the same division. In the Atlantic, it's Montreal is in 1st, and they've got 88 points. It's a pretty good record. Mm-hmm. Ottawa is 2nd, and Boston is 3rd. Mm-hmm. And the Rangers have 93 points. They're only 4 points behind the Blackhawks, and they're the wild card. And then the last wild card spot right now is Toronto. But you've got the Islanders and Tampa Bay hot on their trail.
Yeah, they're right there. They're like just a point or 2 or 3 behind. They're not very far behind at all. I was looking at the standings. They showed a graphic on the Hawks game last night of the Eastern Conference, and I'm thinking, man, those teams kind of looked dead in the water earlier in the season, and now they're fighting for a potential playoff spot. So those last few seeds in the Eastern Conference can be very interesting down these last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, in the Western Conference, it's sort of, I don't know, it's not wrapped up yet, but it's getting to that point. You know that the Blackhawks and the Minnesota Wild are going to finish 1 and 2, just depending on where. St. Louis is probably going to be 3rd. I guess Nashville's kind of caught up with them, but those 2 are likely in. San Jose and Anaheim are going to finish 1 and 2 there. Edmonton and Calgary are going to fight for 3rd in the wild card, and Los Angeles is sort of struggling.
They're hanging by a thread.
Yeah,
like in that playoff race, they are hanging by a thread.
Yeah, nobody's taking hold of this because, I mean, if you look at the last 10 for the teams that are outside looking in, Los Angeles is 5-2-3, Winnipeg is 4-4-2, Dallas is 4-6, Vancouver is 2-5-3, and then you just, at that point, nobody even has, even those teams don't have a shot. It's
I'd be very
basically-
surprised if anyone on the outside somehow squeaks in the Western Conference. I'd be shocked.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be shocked as well. So, really, you're looking at what you see is what you get in the Western Conference. But going back to the Blackhawks, that game against Montreal was nice because it was you really saw Corey Crawford fully bounced back to that Corey Crawford from the beginning of the season. He stood on his head, to stop those. I mean, Montreal had 42 shots on goal.
Mm-hmm. Right after he
including-
did that against the Wild.
Yeah, and the one from Shea Weber was 1,000-mile-an-hour rocket that went right off his face.
It looked like he was shot.
Yeah, I mean, he fell backwards, and my huge concern, and I normally don't criticize the NHL for too many things. I mean, I guess you could, but the fact that didn't register an automatic pull him out of the game to go through concussion protocol.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people are talking
mind-boggling.
about that.
Yeah,
Literally
that's-
mind-boggling because his brain was railed around by a 100-mile-an-hour Shea Weber shot.
Yeah, and Shea Weber, who is arguably the fastest slap shot in the history of hockey.
He's Aroldis Chapman of hockey.
Yeah, and he's unreal, and he just fired that one right off his face.
And it wasn't from the
should've-
blue line. It was like from 10 feet out.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe he's fine because I mean those goalie masks are pretty great, but that should have at least triggered them to pull him out and go, hey, listen, we're gonna check you out to make sure you can go back in a few minutes, whatever, but we need to put you in the protocol to make sure that you are A-okay, and not just be like, well, he got up, he looked fine with his mask on, and we couldn't see his face. But just imagine like a Terry Sawchuk or somebody who didn't wear a mask catching that.
Have you seen pictures of his face?
He looks
Literally destroyed.
He looks like that guy that fights the Punisher in the Punisher movies, Jigsaw. His face all sewn together.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Frankenstein.
Yeah, that guy would have been dead right there on the ice. You just saw somebody die because you can't take a Shea Weber slap shot to your face without a goalie mask.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the Ottawa game on was on Thursday. You had a nice power play goal by Richard Panik with 3 minutes left. Scott Darling had a great game. That was the 18th goal of Richard Panik of the season. To say that he has been a good surprise is an understatement.
Yeah, no kidding. I remember we got him in a trade, and he just kind of seemed like, well, maybe he'll do decent here, change his scenery. A little better than decent, I'd say. I mean, have you seen some of the moves that he's made with the puck? It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and he's fit in to the line really well. He's been a great addition. I believe he's a restricted free agent at the end of the season, which is bad news for the Blackhawks. But
Yeah, especially with that salary cap issue.
yeah, but he has been a great surprise for the Blackhawks. And then you had another hero step up in last night's game in the 2-1 win against Toronto with Hartman, the hero in overtime. 17 seconds left in overtime, and he puts one away.
Mm-hmm. I was getting prepared for a shootout. I'm like, well, shootout, here we go. And then Hartman just says nope and scores a goal.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to like the chances of winning against Toronto in a shootout, but it's much better as a fan it's a much better way to score 17 seconds in overtime than to win in a shootout, and it's much less nerve-wracking too.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you don't see shootouts nearly as often as we once did because of the new overtime rules. So you're like, oh yeah, this thing. It's basically just a breakaway challenge.
I love 3-on-3.
I love it too. It's great. It's so much fun to watch. I don't know why people don't like it. It is entertaining as heck to watch. Could you imagine if the playoffs had 3-on-3?
Oh yeah, they'll never do that, but it would be awesome. It
Yeah.
would be awesome. Yeah, it's you get to see the stars be superstars.
Yeah, because look at what Kane and Tays and Panarin have done the past 2 years in that 3-on-3. I mean, they're dazzling and making goalies just squirm helplessly. It's been so fun to watch that team play in those 3-on-3 overtimes, and it seems like every 3-on-3 overtime the Hawks have won, Crow always comes up with a huge, amazing save in every one. So you get a little bit of everything. You get some great goaltending by Corey Crawford, and you get some great puck handling by Kane and Tays and Hossa and Panarin and those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so the Blackhawks have had a good week, other than the Anisimov injury. That was pretty rough and not looking so good tonight. But they should be able to. They should have been able to win this one. But their schedule for the rest of the week, they've got next game is on Tuesday versus Vancouver, which Vancouver's not having a great season, and then Thursday against Dallas, and then Saturday against Florida. So this should be a nice easy week, is theoretically. They should be able to put most of these games away.
Unfortunately, there are times when these bad teams are the ones that give the Hawks fits. Example, tonight, the Blackhawks struggle against the Avalanche more than any other team I know in the Western Conference.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. But next week starts the end of the season, and really the Blackhawks, it's priming them up for the playoffs, because next week they have at Tampa Bay, at Pittsburgh, and then home against Columbus. And then you wrap the season up with Boston, at Colorado, at Anaheim, at the Kings.
Yeah. So you got some big games coming up there, and we'll see how the Wild keep doing.
And it sucks to have to end the season on the road on the West Coast.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah, so I mean, it's going to be a rough finish to the Blackhawks. Hopefully they can wrap the next 3 up, and then it's going to be a much easier road for them going forward, because they can start taking their foot off the gas a little bit.
Well, yeah, and this is why I really wanted to just easily take this one tonight, because that would put you 7 points up, and the more lead you build right now, the less stressful it kind of becomes down the stretch. Now, I know standings don't matter much to the Hawks, and if they don't end up getting that number 1 spot, it's really not the end of the world. But, you'd like to see them get the number 1 spot at this rate, especially when they're 5 points up right now. You don't really want to relinquish that, but, either way, things are looking mostly up for them. The one thing I'm praying for is no more significant injuries, because let's face it, the Hawks have had some big injuries throughout the season. They've had some nagging injuries to key players, and luckily they've been able to battle through it for the most part, but you don't want that to happen before the playoffs, because that's a whole different ball game, whole different animal to tame.
Absolutely. But I guess that really does it for the Blackhawks. Not too much else to say. We can discuss this game a little bit next week, when we hopefully can be like, oh, they came back from a 3-1 deficit in the third period to win 4-3.
They got 11 minutes to score 2 goals at least.
And I mean, it's not impossible. This Colorado team is terrible, and the Blackhawks
They
team
passed the puck on a breakaway, for goodness sake.
Yeah, it's not a good team. So is there anything else you wanted to talk about? I have one more topic, but is there anything else you wanted to talk about, my friend?
Not too much going on right now in spring training. We're just kind of entering the dog days until the regular season starts. What is nice, I will say, though, what's been fun to watch has been seeing a bit more of the regulars playing a little longer. You're seeing more spring training games with the regular lineup. It seems like a lot of it is set in stone, who's going to be on the roster and who's going to be where at what times. But I will say, there was something interesting that came up this morning, and they were talking about Ian Happ. And according to the report, they said that Joe Madden thinks that he's Major League ready. And Ian Happ has been tearing it up in spring training, which could tell you something. You know, I don't always take spring training stats and performances largely into consideration, but if a manager thinks he's Major League ready, that's going to raise your eyebrow. But the question is, if he is Major League ready, where on earth would he play with this team? So I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because I was actually going to ask you is with what Ian Happ has done at pretty much every level of the minors and what he's done so far in spring training, what do you do with him? And I guess that's a good problem to have because to have too much infield talent. But the thing is what do you do with him? I mean, all right, you could say that he could be another utility infielder, but with a young guy like that, do you want to have him sitting on the bench so much when he should be getting at bats? And you could say, all right, well, we could rest Ben Zobrist more, but eventually you paid him a lot of money.
Javier Baez.
Yeah, you got Javi Baez. So, all right, well, we could put Zobrist in the outfield. All right, well, then who are you not playing? Are you playing
Kyle Schwarber?
Are you not playing Schwarber? You're not playing your best defensive outfielder in Jason Hayward? Or are you moving Jason Hayward to center field and Zobrist to right? But then still, what are you doing with Javi Baez?
I think Ian Happ, personally, I think he's going to be a trade piece for a starter in the future because we know the concern about what's happening with the rotation come next year after the 2017 season. So I think he's going to be a trade piece. That's just kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And if they do bring him up, it's going to be to showcase him and be like, look what we have. We are willing to trade this for pitching. You also have Eloy Jimenez, who's been pretty darn good this in the spring training as well.
Yeah, I feel like Eloy Jimenez is going to be the one asset in the farm system, position player-wise, that's going to be brought up eventually with the Cubs and going to be part of the Cubs' future. Because, you look at the outfield situation and whether it's center field, or, you got Almora there, you have John Jay there, you got Schwarber, you got Hayward. Almora's still a long way to come, so by the time he is Major League ready, we'll kind of see where things are, what's going to happen. I mean, I know Hayward's got a huge contract, but I think it's too early to tell what's going to happen with Eloy Jimenez at this point, since he's still pretty far off.
I would say so as well. I mean, but it's a good problem to have. Is you bring up Kyle Schwarber, Albert Almora, Chris Bryant, Addison Russell, Javi Baez, and from your minor league system, and you still have depth. That's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, it really is. Another question that you got to ask yourself is, looking into the future and looking at potential trade pieces, like I said, I think Ian Happ is going to be one of them. When do you pull that trigger? Do you pull it before it happens? Do you pull it when you absolutely need it? I think you got to ask that question is, are they going to prepare for the future now, knowing that they're probably not going to give Arrieta a bunch of money? Are they going to do that knowing when something is wrong, like say, oh, we need another starter. We thought that this rotation was going to be good, and you're going to do something in the trade deadline. It's kind of those kind of questions you're thinking about, and you don't really have a clear answer to at this point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're the Cubs, you want to trade from a position of strength. So when you don't need somebody is when a good deal presents itself, rather than crap is Arrieta's not pitching well, Lester's hurt. We need to get a pitcher in here, and having to pay out the nose for somebody that is the best available at the time, rather than going out and just searching for deals and finding one, the best time. It's like shopping for Christmas presents early, starting in like August, because you're like, all right, I'll find what they want, get what I want, the price I want to pay, rather than, oh crap, it's 2 days before Christmas and I've just got to pay, somebody off of Craigslist or eBay for the thing I need at a much higher price.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll see what happens when they play more games this year, likely in the minors. I'd put money on the fact that it'd be in the minors. So we'll see. Spring training is one thing, but minor league is another thing. So as good as he looks now, talent will be really evaluated come spring training.
Absolutely.
Regular season.
So the last thing I want to talk about is every week from pretty much the Super Bowl to the draft, we talk about one position at the NFL or in the draft, and kind of talk about some of the top players in that position. And always ask anybody, and basically I watch actual game film of the player, and I watch multiple games over their entire season to try to get identify traits that I think will project well into the NFL and traits that I think will not, and kind of give you my thoughts on players. And if there's players that you guys want me to cover, reach out and let me know. I keep a running list, so if we haven't done that position yet, we'll have it on the books for when we do. And if it's a position we've already done, I'll just go back and revisit it. So this week we are doing centers. So the positions we have left are, next week will be edge rushers. The week after that, safety. The week after that, quarterback. So we are those last couple positions. Next week I'll start with my first mock drafts as well. So this week is centers. I didn't do too many of them. I'm not very high on this draft class of centers. I only did 3. The first guy is Pat Elflein, 6'3", 300 pounds, out of Ohio State. Watching him, he's really cerebral out there. He understands the defense and the blocking scheme really well. He pulls really nicely, and he's a good leader on the field and in the locker room, but not that graceful or nimble. He looks he's not very athletic, and when he has to, centers a lot of time will need to go out, either help double team or go out to the second level and block. And when he has to go out on the second level, it's like he loses who he needs to block and kind of gets confused there. I would say about him, he's a safe pick. I don't think he's going to be a Pro Bowler, but I don't think he's going to be a bust either. I think he's just going to be a steady player that you kind of plug in and you're just happy with. I think a very safe pick. Anything you want to add, Alex?
No, not really. Pretty much summed up everything here, so all right.
Next is Ethan Posick, out of LSU, 6'6", 310. He's a versatile guy. He's played all 5 positions along the offensive line. Really highly regarded coming out of high school. Great fundamentals. He's very athletic, pulls well. But the problem with him is he's way too tall to be a center. 6'6" is too tall to be a center. He's got a weak core. And not necessarily a strong upper body either. So, and he also loses leverage too much because he's so tall and he doesn't get low. At first, I really loved what I saw, but as I started watching more and more film on Ethan Posick, I watched him get bull rushed way too much. And if you're in the center of the guard center middle of the line, and you're getting bull rushed like that, it drives you right back into the quarterback and collapse that pocket, and that's not good. If this guy could get stronger quickly, I think he could be a good player in this league, but right now I'm not touching him in the first 3 rounds because that's too high of a pick on a guy that is going to need to spend a year or two getting stronger.
The Hawks just took the lead. Can I just add that?
Wait, what?
They just scored 3 goals in less than a minute. And one was clearly offside, but they called it a goal anyway.
Nice. I can't see the TV from where I'm sitting. It's on. I'm recording it, but that's awesome. Oh, NHL.com is still listed at 3-3.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, but the Hawks got a real lucky break on it. What should have been an offside. It was almost the same exact thing as that Wild game. So, I guess it's a makeup call for that. So sorry to interrupt your analysis, but I just had to tell you that.
Oh no, that's awesome. I like to hear that. So I don't know if there's anything to add about Ethan Posick.
You mentioned how you were concerned about him being tall enough.
Too tall to be a center.
Yeah, sorry, too tall. The scouting report kind of says how his size could affect the way he performs in a certain position. So if people are going to draft him, they gotta keep that in mind and maybe rearrange accordingly. But that's really the only thing that they talked about.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if I draft him, he's definitely not playing center. I would probably put him at left tackle because I think he does have nice fundamentals. I think he's fairly athletic, and his upper body strength and his core, if you're not going to get bull rushed as much because it's going to be edge guys, he can use his footwork and his athleticism to kind of, and his upper body is not as necessary, but I don't put him in the guard center guard spot.
Yeah.
And then the last guy I have to talk about is Tyler Orlowski, 6'3", 300 pounds, out of West Virginia. He's got good size. He's it's a right up there, kind of the ideal size for a center, maybe on the tall end of it, but good range of size. He's got good strength, both upper body strength and core strength. That was nice to see. He's got a mean streak to him, which is another trait that I don't mind a center having. But he is not good at calling blocks. He just doesn't seem to understand the offense that well, and he is slow-footed. But that size and strength and that mean streak, those go a long way. I think he could be decent if you kind of redshirt him his rookie year, either practice squad or as a backup role, and let him learn under a veteran. I think he could actually become something. So I like the upside I see on Tyler Orlowski.
Yeah, there's a lot of positive things here listed, and you pretty much summed it up right. So they like his athleticism. So I think there's a lot of people high on him according to this report.
Yeah, he's somebody that, not a blue chipper. I'm not drafting him first 3 rounds, but if you can get him in 4, 5, or 6, I think in the long run you've got yourself either a nice guard. I think guard, he could play guard or center. He's got the good size for either one. So I think you could get yourself a nice. If you put him at guard, I think you could start him at guard right off the bat if needed, and because a lot of his issues are being the play caller on the offensive line, and if you put him at guard, he doesn't have to do those things. You could just let him play, and I think he's plenty strong enough and big enough to play guard, and then let him work his way to being a center.
And the Hawks just scored another goal.
Oh my God, nice. Maybe they are going to sweep this week.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of angry NHL fans, though, about the Hawks getting a benefit call. But when you go on and give up 4 goals in less than 5 minutes, you don't deserve to win.
No. So, yeah, unless you have something else, I think this is going to do it for this episode.
Nah, let's just watch the rest of this Hawks game, I guess, when we sign off here, and hopefully we'll be 7 points ahead.
All right. Well, awesome show, and thank you guys so much for listening. Please make sure you're hitting subscribe on however you listen, whether that be iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, however else. Subscribe, share with your friends, and if you need to reach out to us, Twitter at Swerski Sports or at ShyFanPat1, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports. We are Swerski Sports on YouTube as well. And thank you guys so much. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like
Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7.
the Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down